Good morning, all. Another beautiful day here in Dublin this morning. Another walk to work, and so I thought I'd follow up on my video from yesterday, talking about the Irish-British relationship. Now, I thought I would fill in a bit of context with regards to the most recent hiccup in Irish-British relations over the last while, which was Brexit. But before I get to that, I wanted to give a bit of the context with regards to Northern Ireland. So today's video is going to be a brief overview of how Northern Ireland came about and what the situation is up there at the moment from the point of view of somebody living in Dublin. So take some of what I have to say, as with everything I have to say, as a grain of salt. As the title of all my videos is, it's an Irishman's perspective. So this is just what I think and how I feel the situation is. Not necessarily shared by everybody, which is cool. That's why one of the reasons why I do these videos, to get alternate opinions or see who agrees or disagrees with me. But on saying that, with that caveat out of the way, let's talk about Northern Ireland a bit. So Northern Ireland, or Ulster, was probably the most Gaelic of the four regions or provinces of Ireland back in about 500 years ago, about the year 1500. Ireland at the time was predominantly made up of clans, similar to the situation that most people think of in Scotland with the Scottish clans. The clan names generally all have an O in front of them, like O'Connor, O'Rourke, O'Donnell, and the clan that was mostly dominated Northern Ireland, or Ulster at the time, was the O'Neill clan. Hugh O'Neill was the clan leader, and in his youth he had led a failed rebellion against the British Crown under Queen Elizabeth I. And however, she had not punished him severely because of it, as she had other fish to fry, aka the Spanish Armada, and so she allowed him to basically retain his position as a clan leader of the O'Neills in Northern Ireland, specifically ruling or administrating the area out of the county of Tyrone. The situation changed when Queen Elizabeth I died, and King James VI of Scotland was offered the crown of England. This was after a lot of negotiation and a lot of what we would call today blatant bribery. And he accepted the crown of the two kingdoms, becoming King James VI of Scotland and King James I of England. This is where the origin point of what we call the United Kingdom today, although the union of the two crowns would happen a bit later on. This is where the original idea stems from. Now, of course, there were quite a few people in Scotland, particularly on the border regions, who weren't really happy with this arrangement. They'd made quite a lot of money with raiding across the border into England, and as King James was now king of both jurisdictions, he wanted to put a stop to this. There was also quite a lot of people in England who were also not too pleased with having a Scottish king in charge of their country, and they were a bit of a thorn in his side, like most famously being the Catholic, a group of Catholics under that were led by a guy called Guy Fawkes, who tried to blow up the Houses of Parliament due to King James' repressive laws against Catholics at the time, who he used as a scapegoat, basically, to divert people's attention away from his own policies. Sound familiar? Anyway, so King James was first he had to make cash quick, as he had spent quite a lot of money trying to secure the English crown, and secondly he had to deal with these disaffected groups within his joint kingdom. And so he decided that it was high time to punish Hugh O'Neill and the O'Neills for the rebellion that had happened under the previous reign of Queen Elizabeth I. No, he didn't blatantly go out and murder the guy. What he did was he just let it be known through a very subtle way that should O'Neill remain in power in Ulster, he would be removed and thrown into the Tower of London and his family dispossessed. So O'Neill did probably, at the time, probably seemed like a very, very good idea, but in hindsight was a bit of a rash move. He basically loaded up a ship full of as many riches as he could, and him and his supporters sailed off to Italy to try to get support from the Pope to retain his region, and also to help secure an army to make Ireland an independent kingdom, independent Catholic kingdom. Now, of course, the Pope wasn't having any of it. He had enough problems with having to deal with the Germans at the time, because there was lots of wars of religion going on in Europe at the time. And so O'Neill and his supporters never came back. They basically stayed in Italy. This left the area that O'Neill had fled from with no leadership. Now, there are plenty of people living there, but no actual leaders in charge. And so the King James confiscated the land, declaring O'Neill to be a traitor to the crown, and then doled it out to those who opposed him in Scotland and England, and also gave quite a lot of it to various different business interests that wanted to make money out of the whole thing. Again, sound familiar? So this created basically a region in Northern Ireland which had Scottish and English overlords ruling a largely native Irish Catholic population. Now, quite a few of the Irish Catholics that were there fled to the mountainous region of Donegal, or fled further south to places like Monaghan and Cavan, which are famous for its lakes, where the marshy land allowed them to engage in guerrilla warfare against the new English colonists. Now, it wasn't to say there was no English or Scottish people living in Northern Ireland before this period. There had been a lot of connections between the northeastern part of Ireland and Scotland, going back for like 1,000 years before that. In fact, the Dalrida, who were an Irish tribe, moved from that region over to Scotland, and their semi-mythological princess, a lady named Scotia, lends her name to Scotland itself. This is why Scottish and Irish culture are quite similar. That we both kind of have got both kind of brother cultures. So getting back to the story, so this region anyway had two populations, and of course due to this it ended up with quite a lot of wars, attacks, raids, etc., as the two populations vied for power. Skipping forward a couple of hundred years to the time to just before our independence, like in the 1910s, and Ireland had secured an agreement for regional autonomy within the United Kingdom, what would we call devolution today, but what was called home rule. and the largely Protestant and what is known as Unionists, aka they support the union between Ireland and the United Kingdom, population of Northern Ireland basically signed a huge petition and called the Solemn Deed of Covenant, declaring that they would fight to prevent this from taking place. Now, why were they so adamant against it? Well, of course, religion, culture. These people were culturally British. Religion, they were religiously very, very devout Presbyterian Protestants on the whole. But one of the other key reasons was that this region of Ireland was where most of the kind of larger industries were: linen, flax, and most famously the shipbuilding industry, which produced the Titanic. And all of these industries really required access to the British Empire and British trade routes, and they were afraid that they would lose access to this if they were to join Ireland even in semi-autonomy. This resulted in a lot of what we call false news today, where rumours started going around that the new Irish government, which would be predominantly Catholic, would persecute the Protestants throughout the whole of Ireland, that they would become dispossessed, and that that, as the quote went from the time, home rule was Rome rule. Basically, that the Pope would dictate what would go on. Now, honestly, the way things turned out, they actually might have had somewhat of a point, but nevertheless, at the time, these unionist rebels decided that they would arm up to try to prevent Ireland from leaving the United Kingdom. Here in the south, when this was understood, or when we realised this was happening, we started arming up. And secondary to all of this as well was the fact that you had armed I suppose you call them paramilitary group called the Irish Citizens Army, which supported workers' rights and protected strikes and protests that were taking place in Ireland at the time. And then you also had an armed women's group who wanted to vote for women, which didn't actually take place until 1919. So you had several armed groups, including the British Army and Police, and these were all kind of roaming around the country, all the way up until the First World War was declared, at which point Home Rule was put on pause until after the war. A lot of these groups, particularly the Citizens Army, the Irish Volunteers, who were the armed group that supported Home Rule, and the Ulster Volunteer Force, which was the armed group which supported the Union with England, they all ended up, large portions of them anyway, ended up joining the British Army. Those that remained were, I suppose, drawn into, at least in the Republic of Ireland, they were drawn into the Republican movement. Now, Republican as in to gain a republic, not Republican as in United States Republican Party. And these led a rebellion in 1916, which was a catalyst for the War of Independence. Well, the rebellion failed, by the way. But there was a catalyst for the War of Independence in 1920 to 1922, at which point Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, gained its independence as a dominion within the British Empire, but not as a republic. When that was going on, partition being all the rage at the time, the British were convinced to partition Northern Ireland and give it its own regional parliament, which the Unionists in Northern Ireland were very happy with. So having a regional parliament wasn't really a problem. having a regional parliament that was dominated by a group that you felt were going to take revenge on you for centuries of domination by the group you stemmed from, that was the problem. And this resulted in two parliaments in Ireland: the independent Irish Parliament in Dublin and the devolved Parliament of Northern Ireland, based in a place called Stormont, just outside of Belfast. Then after like a lot of things went on after that, but I'm going to leave the video there and talk about the troubles in another video, because I think this video is long enough as it is. But that's the run up to the dawn of the troubles, which I will cover in a different video. Have a nice day. Bye bye.